Welcome to the Brothers in Christ YouTube channel where we talk about our Savior Jesus Christ. And right now we're studying Come Follow Me. What's going on, Corey?
What's up, man? Not much. How are you doing?
Oh, dude, yesterday, actually, I got a bug or something. I was extremely sick yesterday. So was my brother-in-law. But this morning I slept it off. Yeah, something happened. Something was bad. But so yesterday I was terrible. But today I feel much better. So,
That's good.
Yeah, no, thank goodness. And, I read a quote that said basically like through positive thinking, like you can heal physical illness. And I was like, well, let me just be positive. And I was positive all yesterday. I feel excellent right now. So maybe with it, I don't know. Hopefully that worked. I feel better. So maybe it was a positive thinking. Who knows?
Who knows? Never know.
All right, man. So we are going over Ether 6 through 11. Now, I was telling you that, I've read Ether, several times in my life, but I haven't really dived that deep into it. Ether 6 through 11. Most of the things we remember through Ether are the boats tight like a dish, traveling, Brother Jared sing the hand of the Lord, the finger of the Lord, sing the Lord, the veil, and then at the very
Ether
end,
12.
Ether 12, and then the Ether being in the cavity of the rock, and then seeing the destruction and shiz and Coriantum. Right? Would you say those are the main things you remember?
Yeah, definitely.
So I've taken some pretty deep notes in here. So we're going to go over kind of what I've gotten from the timeline of what's going on. I'm going to review with it, and we're going to talk about it. So
Let's do it.
Chapter 6. Let's see. Let me go here. All right. So we find out in chapter 6 of Ether, they I think it's I really enjoy this chapter because this is when they're like traveling through the ocean, right? It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's very descriptive, actually, like their journey, right? Their journey through the oceans. Right here, This is a part that I really liked in chapter 6, verse 7. It says, "And it came to pass that when they were buried in the deep, there was no water that could hurt them. Their vessels being tight like unto a dish, and also they were tight like unto the ark of Noah. Therefore, when they were encompassed about by many waters, they did cry unto the Lord, and he did bring them forth again up upon the top of the waters." So like when they're deep in that submarine in that ocean, seriously. They're like, "Lord, please bring us back."
Yes.
Could you imagine, bro? Just like you're up there, you're starting to sink, and you're just praying with all the faith you got, and then he brings you back up to the top. It's wild.
It's crazy. It'd be hard to get in one of those things, man.
Yeah. And there were 8 of them, I believe, right? So they must have been pretty packed with some, like, a lot of stuff. We're talking goats.
They're probably huge, too.
Huge, right?
Yeah, I don't think they're these little, like, canoe-sized ones. They're probably, like, massive ships.
Yeah, because there was, like, 24 families. Or like 24 people, right? And that was like the information we had at the very beginning of their journey. Obviously, they had kids. They were on the shore for like 4 years, so that there was a ton of people in these ships,
animals and stuff.
Right. So they are praying, pretty much like when they go too deep, and they're like, "Yo, Lord, please help me." Then 9. Not only they're praying, but they're doing a form of prayer. It says, "And they did sing praises unto the Lord." Yeah, the brother Jared did sing praises unto the Lord, and he did thank and praise the Lord all the day long. And when the night came, they did not cease to praise the Lord. So they're in these ships just praising the Lord all day and night. This must have been quite the experience, don't you think, to be in these giant ships just praising the Lord nonstop?
Yeah. Who got stuck with all the animals? That's the real question.
Yeah, how are they going to the bathroom and all that stuff?
Yeah,
it sounds like a terrible.
That's why I was thinking like the hole's got to be a little bigger than just like a little quarter size hole or whatever.
Yeah, no, this is a price of big holes.
Yeah, it's crazy how like the ship must have been like the workmanship to make it so like no water came in.
Right, and they even reference Noah, right? So like they knew about Noah for them
to make it out of wood and make it that tight is crazy.
Yeah, they must have been so skilled with their labor, right?
Yeah.
This is where it shocks me, Corey. Is verse 11. It says, "And thus they were driven forth 344 days upon the water."
Yeah, that's wild.
They were not. So I'm assuming that like they didn't really go in the depths that much because they probably like had the holes open. They were probably like on the top, and then when they did go down, they would pray a lot to come back. But 344 days of getting submerged like a lot, that would be so rough. So hopefully they were just floating along for a long time and sticking their head outside the holes and
like
seeing their friends.
When it was like chill, they were outside,
Right,
on top, and then
barbecuing a goat that they had.
Barbecuing one of the goats.
So
And some beer.
Insane though, right? Like that they had to go through this for I was like, maybe it was like 3 months, 2 months, 344 days. Oh my gosh. Right?
Yeah, dude. I can't imagine getting in one of those, to be honest. Like I would never be like a submarine guy, like in the Navy. Like I could never do that.
And they're probably having kids while on this ship too, right? Like probably some kids were born. Probably was wild. Okay. So 13 is cool because it came to pass that they went forth upon the face of the land and began to till the earth. So, 12. I want to read 12 first. And they did land upon the shore of the promised land. So they're on the promised land. What is the promised land? It's the Americas. Where in the Americas? We're not 100% sure where they landed, but we do know that they like were north of where the Nephites were, because they talk about it a lot in the scriptures that the land of the Jaredites was north of Zarahemla. So wherever that may be, that's where they were. So they landed and they landed on the promised land, and they bowed themselves down upon the face of the land and did humble themselves before the Lord and did shed tears of joy before the Lord because of the multitude of his tender mercies over them. Of course, right? Imagine not being on land for 344 days. You finally get to that land, you're bowing down. You're bowing down and you're thanking the Lord 100%. There's no, that I'd be so grateful to be on land after that experience, right? So they're super excited. And as soon as they get there, it says after they pray and thank the Lord, they spread across the face of the land and they begin to till the earth. So they thank the Lord first, and then they get to work. They say, hey, there's no time to waste. It's time to get to work. We landed. It's time to go.
Yeah, I mean, imagine landing in a new land. You got to get to work right away. It's like, who knows how long it is going to be before we get food, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, this is where I got the number of how many people were on here. So it says, and the friends of Jared and his brother were in the number of about 22 souls. And they also begat sons and daughters before they came to the promised land. And therefore they began to be many. So 22 friends that came with them. Okay. Jared had at least 4 sons. And it doesn't say anything about his daughters. Brother Jared had sons and daughters, so probably about 35 people in total that came across these 8 barges, right? These 8 boats. It's quite a few, right? Or more, right?
That's just their kids, right? All the 22 friends, like they probably had some kids.
Yeah, it says, let's see. And the friends of Jared and his brother were in the number about 22. Yeah, so maybe it's the friend. They're just referring to the friends, and then maybe their friends had kids. So quite a few, right? And they were taught to walk humbly before the Lord, and they were also taught from on high. So the humility, we learn that a lot of humility comes and remains when we go through trials and we have to depend on the Lord. And a lot of times, like when people prosper and are rich, they forget the Lord, but you're staying humble in those barges because you make a mistake, you start getting crazy, you might not come back to the top of that ocean, right? You might get submerged and never see the light of day again, right?
Yeah, seriously.
So, keep going. How did they? Okay, so it's very interesting because I was reading this and I saw how many kids that brother Jared and Jared had and all the people here. So I was like, is polygamy exist here? Because I'm like, how are they having so many kids? So in verse 20, it basically says that the brother Jared had 22 sons and daughters, and Jared had 12 sons and daughters, 4 sons, 8 daughters. So how did they have so many kids? At first I was like, well, are they practicing polygamy back in the day? Or because that's a lot of kids, right, Corey? Like 22 sons and daughters. But back in the day, we learned that they lived for longer than we live now. When they come across like the time, like when they say how long people live before they died, sometimes it'll say like 140 years, 102 years. So I don't know if they practice polygamy. I guess it doesn't matter, but I think they live longer so they could have more kids.
Yeah, who knows, right? Because the other question is like, were their years the same? Were they counting time the same that we counted time, right?
Right. It's a good question.
Hard to know.
But we do know that Adam lived for a very long time as well, right? Like in the beginning in Genesis, and like you read the scriptures, like the people in the very beginning, like you said, if it's the same time, you're right. I don't know, but I'm assuming maybe like the diseases and all the things that maybe wreck our bodies now, they didn't exist back in the day like they do now. So maybe they
probably
didn't.
just had more kids too, because they were just like, that's all they had to focus on, right?
What else they have to do, right?
Yeah,
They didn't
like,
have TV or distractions.
they weren't trying to build a business. They weren't trying to travel the world. They weren't trying to, do all these random things that we're trying to do now.
Exactly. So 21.
Get food and have kids.
Yeah, and back in the day, obviously with farming, like the more kids you had, the more you could till and put them to work.
You need the workers.
Yeah, you need them. That was that you had kids so they could get to work. So verse 21 of chapter 6 says, "And it came to pass that they did number their people, and after they had numbered them, they did desire of them the things which they would desire that they should do before they went down to their graves." So basically, brother Jared and Jared, they're the leaders. They're about to die, right? And they get all the people together. They count them and they say, "What do you guys desire before we die?" Pretty nice of them, right? Like they're old. They're like, "But we're about to go. What do you guys want of us?" And it came to pass that the people desired that they should anoint a king, one of the sons, to be a king over them. We know what happens when you get righteous and unrighteous kings. You're about to set yourself up for a lot of pain and a lot of problems. So it says in verse 23, "And now, behold, this was grievous unto them. And the brother Jared said unto them, Surely this thing will lead into captivity." So what do we learn, Corey? We learn that pretty much all of Ether, even in the Nephite nation, like when they had kings before King Mosiah came and did the reign of the judges, having a king is not a good idea, right?
Yeah, well, reign of the judges didn't work that good either.
It did not. It lasts like 100 years. Yeah. So the interesting thing, Corey, about like King Mosiah was the king, right? And then when they found Limhi, and when Limhi had come to Zarahemla, they had brought these plates with them, the plates of Jared. And then Limhi had asked Mosiah, since he was a seer at that time, if he could translate these records. Remember that? Like how Mosiah translated these? It's interesting that King Mosiah read this, translated it, and then he's the one that switched to the reign of the judges. So it's very possible that King Mosiah read this and was like, "Oh my gosh, having a king is not a good idea. My sons don't want to be kings. We got to switch this up." So I was thinking that might have had an influence on him changing things up.
That's what happened.
Right?
Yeah, that probably is how it went. Because
exactly.
I mean, if you read the whole record too, or like more of it than what we have,
right,
it was probably way crazier.
Translated,
right?
Yeah, way crazier. He's like, we got to change this ASAP because this can get really bad. So,
like you read that in the Ether, like what happens with Shiz and Coriantum, it's like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. I was listening to it today, and they said that Coriantum, like after like 2 million of his people died, and then he was like, well, maybe this was a bad idea to fight. Like it took him like 2 million people to die for him to be like, maybe I should repent. So verse 24, but Jared said unto the brother Jared, "Suffer them that they might have a king. And therefore he said unto them, Choose ye out of among our sons, even whom you will have." Right. So Jared, I would say the brother Jared is, the prophet at this time, like the super righteous one. And not saying that Jared's not, but Jared's like, just give him a king. Right. And brother Jared's like, fine. So it's really interesting. And it came to pass that they chose all the brothers. 25, pretty much all the brothers refused to be king. They don't want to
all
be
the
king.
sons of the brother of Jared, right?
All the sons, and they are only able to find one who's willing to do it, and it was Uriah. Uriah was the son of, it says, and it came to pass that neither would the sons of Jared, even all save it were one. So one of the sons of Jared is willing to do it, and his name was Uriah. I think that's how you say it. And he was anointed king over the people. So it's pretty cool that they still follow the tradition of anointing the king, setting the king apart, kind of like in the temple how we're anointed, right? That's just, I think that's been something. Even Christ, like, what does Christ mean? Christ means the anointed one. It's not Jesus's last name. Jesus Christ. Christ means anointed, the anointed one. So it seems like being anointed and being set apart is like the way it's always been to like really choose someone to guide. So as soon as they pick Uriah, he reigns in righteousness and the people prosper. It says he began to reign in righteousness and he began to reign and the people began to prosper and they became exceedingly rich. Uh-oh.
Yeah,
we know what happens. Every time I read that, Corey, in the scriptures, I'm like, uh-oh.
When I was reading this, before I read that he was righteous, I was like, oh man, he's the only one that wants to be king. He's probably going to be wicked.
I know, right? But then you find out he's actually a good guy, right?
Yeah.
But it's so funny now that I read, like, and he was rich and they became rich. I'm like, here it comes. Here we go. We already read all throughout the Book of Mormon that once you prosper and you're rich, like the chances of people staying strong, is difficult.
Once they get rich, it seems like, at least in this story, right? In this history, it's pretty much over.
You start to prosper. Once you start to prosper, you're in trouble. All right, Corey. So this is where it gets really, really juicy, and this is usually the stuff that I used to pass over. I would not read that in depth into chapters 7 through 10 because it's like, this king's good, this king's bad, this king's good, this king's bad. But I took like a timeline of like the righteous kings and like how the people like prosper. And I'll just kind of read it. It'll probably be quicker. But basically 7, 8, and 9, and even 10, like it just goes through king, like the story. And this is probably over thousands of, like, hundreds and hundreds of years. But it goes over like basically what happens when you have unrighteous kings. So only after about 4 generations, Corey, did the people forget the mercy of God and start rebelling and wickedness. So we have brother Jared. We have Uriah. Then Uriah reigns in righteousness. He has a son named Kib, right? So there's 4. Kib is righteous, and then he has a son that begins to reign named Korihor. They're already getting wicked. Okay, we can read into like more in depth, but I'm not going to. I'm just gonna kind of go over like really quick what's going on. So we have Korihor, who's wicked, right? Isn't that frustrating, bro? So just 4 generations, and then they're already kind of going and choosing the wrong.
It's a long time, though. 4 generations.
Yeah. Well, it's just crazy. You think that they would like stay strong forever, right? But that's just not the case. So after
if you go back 4 generations in our time, like you're into like the 1800s, right?
Yeah, that's true. So
it's a long time ago.
That is a long time ago, and you look at like how things have changed just in several years. Like, yeah. So after Korihor, Shul is the brother of Korihor and the son of Kib. Okay, so again, Korihor reigns in righteousness. Kib has another son named Shul.
Kib's kind of a sweet name.
Kib is a cool name, yeah. So Kib, these are some cool names too. It's like Joseph Smith. We all know that he didn't make this up, but if he did, which we don't believe he did, he was coming up with some crazy names right now. He was the name expert right here.
The name wizard.
He didn't have ChatGPT back then to just whip out a bunch of crazy names. He was thinking this up. If you don't believe that he wrote this, he translated this. So after Kib is Shul is the brother of Korihor and son of Kib. Korihor reigns in wickedness, and the brother of Kib takes the kingdom back from Korihor, who's wicked, and he gives it back to Shul. Okay, and then Shul continues to reign in righteousness. So what we find out is So it looks like Korihor took the kingdom from his dad Kib, reigned in wickedness. Shul, the brother's like, I'm gonna get this kingdom back, got it back, gave it back to his dad, and then Shul continues to reign in righteousness. You following me right here? So, so next thing is the kingdom divides at this point. Okay, so Shul is rocking, he's doing good. He reigns in righteousness. The kingdom breaks up. Okay, Noah, the son of Korihor, remember, Korihor
it's weird how real quick. It's weird how these names were like passed down, right? Because these were separate people, and you have like Nehor and Korihor, and these names were passed down into like other people in the Book of Mormon, right? Even though the people weren't really like related or intertwined, right?
Yeah, if we studied the names, which I'm sure other people have, I'm sure they have like a certain meaning. Like I know that in the Jewish culture, anything that Hezekiah, anything that ends with a Zedekiah, Hezekiah, Mosiah, I think at the end when it ends with a, it means like, I can't remember exactly what it means. What?
Yeah, just something specific.
Right, and we do see a lot of Nehor, Korihor, Coriantum, right? Maybe like an OR means something.
Yeah, probably.
Or HOR.
Yeah.
So the kingdom divides, and Noah, son of Korihor, rebels against Shul and takes over part of the land. So Shul's getting wrecked, dude. Like, give Shul a break. He's getting his kingdom taken away from his brother. His another one of his sons like gives him the kingdom back. Then the kingdom divides. Korihor, son of Noah, reigns. Then you go, Nimrod gives the kingdom back to Shul. So this kingdom is breaking in half. People are taking it away, and the sons are basically just always trying to give it back to Shul. And then Shul has Omar, and he reigns. Omar has Jared, and Jared rebels. So right after Shul dies, he gives the kingdom to Omar. Omar has a son named Jared, and Jared rebels against him. Jared goes to a different part of the land to chill. He's basically like, forget you guys, I'm going to a different part of the land. And he goes into Heth and gains, let's see, Jared goes to a different land to chill in Heth. That's what they call it. It's like east. They're saying that Heth is east of like Zarahemla in this as we read this. And later, it's honestly might be too confusing to read all these names. Basically, because I was going to go through the timeline, but it's a lot. So basically what we're saying is there's like righteousness, people repent, and then there's like years and years and years of wickedness once the wickedness comes in. And the wickedness comes from the kings rebelling, wanting to take like their father's like kingdom, and they just fight and fight and fight. Let me see if there's anything interesting. Let's see. So Omer is warned. Okay, so this is an interesting thing. Omer is warned in a dream and that his son, believe his son Jared wants to take over the kingdom, and he departs out of the land. So where do we hear people getting warned in dreams? Joseph, Joseph, the father of Jesus, right? The earthly father of Jesus is warned, so they go to Egypt. Lehi is warned, right? So this seems like God communicates, consistently through dreams. So Omer is warned in a dream, departs to a new land eastward of where the Nephites were destroyed with his whole family, other than Jared and his family. So if we go back to Jared, this is wild, bro. This is why like studying this stuff in depth was really interesting, because Jared is wicked, right? Super wicked. Yeah. And again, this is not the brother of Jared or Jared. This is like down the line. So back with Jared, his daughter. This story is crazy, man. Like I just keep laughing because it just gets wild. So
we're in chapter 8 now, right?
Yeah, I can't remember when I was writing this timeline. It was just all kind of meshed with the kings like rebelling and going against each other. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So basically what happens is Jared like takes over half the kingdom, and then his brother like beats up Jared, gives it back to the dad, and Jared's like all sad. He's like, man, I had this kingdom and it was so nice, and he's just like really bummed about it, right? But I don't know if I would have spared Jared. Jared's a bad dude. So Jared is like, So Jared is back in the kind of acting all sad, and his daughter tempts Akish, and Jared says he can have his daughter if he kills his dad so he can be king again. You remember this story in here now? So basically, the daughter goes to her dad, Jared, and is like, "Why are you sad, Dad?" And he's like, "Well, you know, I wanted the kingdom, and they took it back from me, even though I got it because I was wicked." And her daughter's like, "Look, I can dance for Akish, who's your friend, and I can tempt him, and he'll want me to be he'll want me to be his wife, and just say, hey, give me to Akish if he kills your dad, right?" And how wild is that, bro? Like, I would say his daughter is whack, bro. Like, she's like, hey, why are you? She came up with that plan, and it even says that she studied the secret combinations because she came to her dad and she's like, hey, didn't you remember the secret combinations and like the records of old times, like that you can obtain kingdoms by just like deceit? So she kind of put this into his mind when he was sad, because he probably wasn't stewing over it. I don't know. The scriptures basically just say she brought the plan up to him and he was down. What do you think of that? It was her, man.
Weird.
So
that's wild.
It is wild. So she dances.
As little kids, I can't imagine.
So she's been studying these secret combinations, and not only that, but she puts it into the mind of Akish to do something to her, like eventually like study these plans out more. And Akish ends up killing her dad. So it's like what goes around comes around. So I'll keep reading. So it says, back with Jared, his daughter tempts Akish, and Jared says, you can have my daughter if you kill my dad. Akish promises friends and family things to get them to commit. So Akish goes to his family. He's like, hey guys, will you guys make an oath unto me that you'll do whatever I say? Will you make that oath? And before they even really, I'm assuming, know what they're committing to, they're like, yeah, we'll make an oath. We'll promise to do anything you want if you put us in power. So they agree to do whatever he wants. He puts them in power, and then he's like, all right, one doesn't put him in power yet, but he says, okay, in order to be in power, you gotta freaking do all this terrible stuff. And they're like, uh-oh, I didn't know I was committing to that, but I guess I gotta stick with it, right? So Akish promises friends and families to give them to get them to commit to him, and they create a secret combination. The daughter of Jared shows Akish where to find all these sacred oaths, these old oaths, and tempts him to do it. So again, the daughter is not only putting it into the mind of her dad, Jared, but she puts it into Akish, and he studies them like deeply. Her love for her dad has caused her to be wicked and do terrible things. It's crazy how love, which is a great thing, can cause people to do wicked things, right? It's pros and cons of, I guess, love, righteous and wickedness. So
it's weird that they use love. It seems like it's more like trying to get her dad's approval, right? Like maybe her dad didn't pay much attention to her, and she's trying to
get his love, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, get his approval, get his. Yeah.
So crazy. So Akish succeeds in overthrowing the kingdom of Omar, which Omar is the dad of Jared, right? Because, you know, he succeeds. Jared is anointed king. Wow, Jared, you did it, man. You did a secret combination with your daughter, and you got Akish to kill your dad. Congrats, you're the king. Is that really what you wanted? Through wickedness, you could be king. So, it succeeds. Jared's anointed king, and Akish gets his daughter to be his wife. So we would think like, okay, well, Jared, you got what you wanted. Are you happy? The next thing that happens is Jared is murdered because of the wickedness of great wickedness on his throne, and Akish reigns. So Jared, because gets the throne, is literally murdered because of how wicked he was and how wicked things are. And Akish, who got the daughter, is now in charge. Didn't seem like things worked out too well for Jared, right?
No.
So
not surprised by that, though.
Not surprised at all. So Akish is such a squeege because he did all these things. He has a son, and he's jealous of his son, and he lets his son die in prison. He has a son who knows if it was the son of the daughter of Jared, right? The daughters of Jared that like did all this, but he throws his son into prison because he's jealous of his son, and his son dies. Sounds like a terrible guy, right? Like he's killing people, he's reigning in wickedness, and he throws his son to die in jail. So Nimrah is a son of Akish, is mad. He's pissed. He's like, man, my dad stinks. He just threw my other brother into prison. So he takes off and he joins Omar. Omar is the one that that took off and was warned in the dream. And they're on the east of where the Nephites that were completely destroyed. So he goes off with them. And other sons of Akish get the people to follow them with money and gain, and they begin a war against their dad. The war lasts many years until 30 people remain in the land, in that part of the land. So right now the kingdom is split. You have Omar who left because he's warned in a dream. He's on the coast, it says. And then you have Akish, who's the king, and his sons are rebelling against him. They're getting people to follow him into war against their dad because of the money they have. Until 30 people, Corey, are left. 30. That's what it says. 30 people are left. This is a disaster. Is it not?
Seriously. Oh, this is crazy. Seems like a quick demise, too.
Yeah, all because, I don't want to say all because of the daughter of, Jared that went wild, but she put all these secret combinations in these guys. So it just seems like the whole kingdom just started getting really wicked. So 30 people are left. And Omar, remember Omar that's on the coast? He is restored again to the land of his inheritance with 30 people left. They're like, hey, Omar, you can have the land back. There's only 30 people left. So Omar is restored again to the land of his inheritance after this big war. Emmer becomes king, and sees peace in the land. So it seems like Omar was a righteous guy that had been warned of the
Christ, right?
Yeah. So he comes back, restored. Emmer becomes king and sees peace in the land. They then become exceedingly rich. You know what's so interesting? It's because like when you're righteous, you become rich and prosper in the land. But it seems like the rich, as soon as, like we talked about earlier, as soon as you get rich, you're in trouble. Emmer was righteous all the days, and the people prospered. Coriantum reigns. So basically, Emmer is the one who is the son of Omar that is reigning. They prosper. He has a son named Coriantum who reigns, and Emmer lives in peace until he dies. Emmer is so righteous that he even sees Jesus Christ before he dies. Emmer reigns. So that is pretty cool. I think do you see the actual verse where it says like he saw Jesus? I think it even calls him like a cool title. It says like the Son of Righteousness or something like that.
Yeah, Son of Righteousness.
I like that. I was like, okay, he's the Son of Righteousness. And they just gloss over that, right? They're like, hey, he saw the Son of Righteousness. So no biggie. He sees the Son of Righteousness. So Coriantum reigns, and Emmer lives in peace. Emmer even sees Jesus Christ. Coriantum reigns in righteousness and has calm. Okay, now we're in calm, and what happens here is calm has Heth. Now they've all just a couple generations after Emmer sees Jesus. Coriantum has a son named Heth, and Heth, he's wicked. And the people spread over all the land, Corey, and begin to be wicked again. Heth seeks to destroy his father with secret combinations. They're coming back. Secret combinations are back. He ends up killing his father. Heth takes over the kingdom. There's great wickedness and a famine, and there's even cannibalism at this point. They're even eating each other at this point because they're so wicked. I didn't know that they were. I didn't ever remember there being cannibalism in this part of the Book of Mormon, but there was. So the kingdom is so wicked, famine. They're eating each other because they're so hungry, and here come the poisonous snakes, Corey. The poisonous snakes start chasing people. People go down south, and the poisonous snakes chase the people, and then they let them go. And it says that the poisonous snakes are just chilling on the south border or wherever this is, and they're not letting anyone get past them. So there's apparently some people that got past them that probably, who knows if those are the descendants of like the people in South America that just somehow made it and they just settled, but the snakes are not letting people get past. So people flee down south, and until they repent and God spares them. So then, after all this, Shez reigns. Shez is that could be the son of Heth. I'm not really sure, but Shez reigns, and he had a son named Shez. So he has another son named Shez. Shez has reigns in righteousness, has a son named Shez, and Shez rebels against his dad. But it says, thankfully, Shez, the son of Shez, was killed by a robber because he was super rich. So then Shez, the dad, is spared from Shez, who was going to rebel against him. It's pretty interesting. It's like, hey, Shez had a son. His son was bad, wanted to take him out, but then a robber killed him because he was rich. So Shez is all right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So
it's interesting to think about, like, you have sons even just like a couple. Yeah, even if there's just like a couple righteous people, though, it seems like they're doing okay, right? Like a few righteous leaders can make like all the difference.
Yeah, it does seem like leadership is extremely important for the people to like remain strong, right? They say if a righteous king is righteous, like the people follow. But like King Noah, look at how fast that turned from like bad. Because his dad wasn't bad. I think Zenith.
Kings. Yeah.
Crazy, man. So we're almost done. Sorry, I know this is probably long, and it's probably hard to remember all these people. But basically, Shez reigns. He had a son. His son tried to rebel against him, but he's killed because he's rich. Riplikish reigns in the stead of Shez and is wicked. So he has a son named Riplikish. Riplikish is wicked. He is driven from the land because the people disliked him and killed him before they drive out his people. So Riplikish is wicked. It says that he taxed the people a ton. He made them like work really hard to build thrones and stuff, build lots of prisons. And the people rebel against Riplikish. They drive out his descendants, his people, out of the land, and they kill Riplikish before he can dip. But his people leave, like his family. So they're driven out of the land. Coriantum makes war and takes over the kingdom. He reigns and eases the burden. So it seems like Coriantum is like related to that family of the descendants that were kicked out. He comes back and makes war with whoever's in charge at that time, and he eases the burden of the people. So he like says, okay, we're gonna get rid of all these taxes that Shez was, Riplikish was doing to all the people.
Coriantum was a descendant of Riplikish.
Okay, yeah. So he was one of the family that got driven out, right? Because they hated Riplikish, so they killed him, driven out. Coriantum comes back, gives war, and then he eases the pains of the people. And it says that he eased the pain of the people, but he was still wicked. But they like made that distinction really known in this part of the scriptures. They said he was a good king. He treated the people good, but he went on the ways of wickedness. And then he has a son named Kim, and Kim, I believe, does the same thing. Like he does a good job at like helping the people, but he also is wicked. Corey, isn't that interesting? Like out of like the history of someone living 100, 150 years, 80 years, really like the information that they're giving us is like righteous or not, wicked or not. Like It's kind of interesting that like your whole life can be broken down into
a couple words,
summed up into like you were good or you weren't. Like imagine us, like maybe that'll be what will be summed up like at the very end. Was he Christ-like or not? Christ-like or not? Like righteous or not? Makes you really think about what's actually important in this life, and when you can see everything summed up here into like two words, righteous or wicked.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
So
it's kind of like in the Helaman 5, right, where it talks about like he's named after like Helaman names his son Nephi and Lehi, named after their forefathers because they were good.
That's pretty much it, because they were good.
One word, good.
I love that. So Kim, son of Coriantum, reigns. His brother rebels against him, and he is in captivity his whole life. So Kim, son of Coriantum, reigns. His brother rebels and throws him in prison, and he's in prison pretty much his whole life. In captivity, I think it's a difference. I don't think it's necessarily prison. It says captivity. So captivity might be like you're pretty much like a slave. but not necessarily just stuck in
There
like
were
a
lots of
prison.
prisons, right? That he built. What's his name? Built lots of prisons.
But it does seem like they have family in prison because they all have tons of family with like beget
Put them
sons
all
and
in prison.
yeah, everybody's in prison, I guess, or in captivity. I would think they're just like being watched over. So it says, brothers rebel. Let's see. He's in captivity his whole life, and in captivity he has a son named Levi. Levi obtains the kingdom after fighting for it. He has a son named Coram. Coram reigns. Kish reigns. So I'm just going. It just right here is just like boom. We're just going to give you names. So Coram reigns. Kish reigns. Lib reigns and destroys all the poisonous serpents. It's like many generations. They finally can kill these poisonous serpents, and they're gone now. So Lib destroys the poisonous serpents. There's prosperous times, and he has Hertham. Hertham reigns, but the kingdom is taken away from him, and he spends the rest of his days in captivity. He has Heth. Heth has Aaron. Aaron has Amminadab. He begat Coriantum, and Coriantum dwelt in captivity all his days, and he begat Com. Com eventually gets power over all the kingdom, and then robbers come back into the land, and Com cannot stop them. So they're just in captivity, sons. Eventually, Com, who's one of the sons of the people in captivity, gets the kingdom back, and then the wicked robbers come back. Woo, that's it, Corey. Like that's pretty much
Crazy,
what we get from like
sequence of events.
Sequence events. That's pretty much all the way up to 10 at the end of 10. So what I've learned from studying this in depth is, what is your life really summed up to in the grand scheme of things? If people have to like break down who you were and like what you did, it's like, were you righteous or not? And it even says that in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, it basically says like he walked in the ways of his father, or he walked in the ways of righteousness, or he didn't. They really break it down to like, this king was wicked or he was righteous, wicked or righteous. So again, that just helps me realize like, what will we be remembered for? And what's truly important is like the way you live your life in righteousness or in wickedness. Also, I learned that, leadership is so important, and like they can really influence people to do right or wrong. It seems like, we got to be so careful with who we follow.
Yeah, I think it shows too, like what you do, like what your actions like really do matter, right? And how they can affect like future generations. Because I don't know, at least in these chapters, it doesn't seem like there's like that many people on the earth anymore, right? Because like they get down to 30, right?
30, right? Yeah.
And so it's like, it seems like it's, a handful of families, and it's like, why are these people even, important? But we're learning about them, and they're affecting our lives, and their decisions are affecting our lives. And yeah, it just shows you that everything you do matters.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you said there's not that many people, but eventually with Coriantum, it says that 2 million people were killed. It goes back up, right? So it's so interesting that maybe Omar that was on the East Coast that was restored to the inheritance of his land. Maybe he brought quite a few people with him.
It was probably over hundreds of years too, so I'm sure it had time to get back up, right?
Yeah, man. Well,
and the Jaredites come over like thousands of years before.
Thousands and thousands of years, yeah.
We're talking tons of generations, right?
And then you see that Coriantum is like spared, and he goes and hangs out with the people in Zarahemla, and he's with them. I think it says for like 3 moons, and then he dies. So like they last. Coriantum lasts. The Jaredite nation lasts with Coriantum until Limhi's people find him, right? Or not Limhi. I'm sorry, the people of Zarahemla, Mulek.
Yeah.
So something that's interesting, Corey, that I want to share with you. Graham Hancock. Have you heard of that guy?
Sounds familiar.
He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast a couple times. He's basically like he likes to like research lost civilizations, and he talks about LIDAR and all that stuff. on Netflix, I just saw he came out with a new a new series called like the ancient civilizations in the Americas, because like back in the day, conventional wisdom said that like there were no people here in the Americas before like the Bering Strait and like those people that came from there. Like they just didn't believe this place was civilized.
Yeah.
And Graham Hancock's like, nah, that ain't true. Like, why are archaeologists and why are scientists still saying this? So his point is like he's trying to show like that's not true. And obviously it's not true because we can see just from LiDAR. Yeah, I watched it. It was really cool. Basically, it just goes all over the Americas and it's like, yeah, this stuff has been around for like 10,000 years. This civilization, this like building in this area that we found on LiDAR has been around forever. So
where are they finding stuff at?
Everywhere. Amazon, Peru, in New Mexico, like you, even in the north, like wherever you go, it's all over America. There's like civilizations that are being found that are like are built with like geometric shapes, pyramids, temples. Like it's changing the way that obviously the way that people thought that this place was not civilized before the Native Americans, right? Or there was not civilizations. Cool. So the reason why I'm bringing that up, Corey, is because we know that the Book of Mormon is a record of the people of Nephi, Lehi, right? The Nephites and Lamanites, and it's the people of the Jaredites, and then it even goes into the people of Mulek that were Mulek was the son of Zedekiah. So those are like the three kind of civilizations we know of, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up is Jesus Christ, he says to the people in Jerusalem, like other sheep that I have not of this fold that I must go visit. He says that to the people in Jerusalem, to his apostles, and he says that to the people also in 3rd Nephi. He's like, I still have to go visit many people. So I always thought that the Nephite civilization was like the only one, like the Nephites and Jaredites were like the only one, and somehow they just like took over like all the Americas, but I honestly think it was not very big geographical area that they took over. And we just happen to have the records of these people out of probably the thousands of dispersed people all over the Americas that were there. You know what I'm trying to say? Like we just have this small portion. So when people are like, oh, it happened here, like the Book of Mormon happened in Central America or South America, it's like, we don't know, but we do know that there were people there, and they could have been. Go ahead.
I wonder if seeing like all those civilizations like changes like the estimate on how many people have like lived on the earth, right?
Oh, of course, it has to. There's probably been so many people. So, Corey, the reason why I bring this up again is, when Jesus Christ said, "There, I have other sheep that are not of this fold," I've been looking at scriptures now, like with that different lens. I've been looking at scriptures where it says like the people went down south and the people went up north and they never heard of again, and the people went up east and west. And so it's like, what I'm basically trying to say is I thought that it was just this part of the land and like the Nephites and the Lamanites, but now I'm starting to see that there was a lot of dispersion and scattering within just the Nephites and the Lamanites and the Jaredites alone. They went off to other places as well. Like you have the Nephites right here, and it says, I'll read this. In Helaman, do you want me to, can I tell you about this, or is this, you don't really care?
I'll go for it.
So in Helaman, it says in chapter 3, verses 3, and it came to pass in the 46th year, there was much contention and many dissensions, in the which there were an exceedingly great many who departed out of the land of Zarahemla, and they went forth unto the land northward to inherit the land. And they did travel to an exceedingly great distance, insomuch that they came to large bodies of waters and many rivers. Yea, and even they did spread forth into all parts of the land, into whatever parts it had not been rendered desolate and without timber. And then they start building. And it basically says that the people in the land northward did dwell in tents. They built temples. And let's see. And it came to pass that there were many of the people of Ammon who were Lamanites by birth did also go forth into this land. And now there are many records kept of the proceedings of this people by many of this people, which are particular and very large concerning them. But behold, 100 part of the proceeding of this people, yea, the account of the Lamanites and Nephites that had gone up and left Zarahemla, and their prophecies and their shipping and their building and their ships and temples and synagogues and the righteousness and their wickedness and their murders and their robbings and their plunderings and all the manner of abominations and whoredoms cannot be contained in this work. But behold, there are many books and many records of every kind, and they have been kept chiefly by the Nephites, and they have been handed down from one generation to another. So let's see. And scattered upon the face of the earth and mixed with the Lamanites until they are no more called Nephites because of wickedness. So just off of Helaman chapter 3, we learned that there was a group of people that left that kept their own records, and they can't even, not even a 1/10, like not even 100 part can be contained. And that was off of people that had dispersed off of the Nephites. Does that make sense? So that's just one circumstance or one situation of people that broke off that we know about, but we don't know really much about their records, right?
Yeah.
And that's in Helaman. Now, at the end of Alma, who do we hear about? We hear about the guy Haggoth, who builds ships, and he also goes north, and they never hear from him again. And I told you about Omar, how he went to the coast, and because of a dream, and then he comes back and inherits the land, but that was far from the land where the Jaredites were. So I'm piecing it together now. And then the people of the south, remember the Serpents that were driven south, and then basically they couldn't come back for generations because the Serpents were there. So where did the people that went down south go? They probably kept on going down south. So it just makes me think there's a lot, these civilizations that they're finding everywhere. It makes sense now that there's so many, because again, it wasn't just this one location, this one geographical location like Central America that they were stuck in. They went everywhere in the Americas, and we don't even have a 100th part of the records of just the people that they were saying in Helaman. There's records and records and records that have been kept, and Moroni and Mormon were just able to take really what we have is the Jaredites, the records of the Jaredites, and bridge them really short, and then the people that stayed in Zarahemla. That's pretty much what the Book of Mormon is like the record of the area of Zarahemla and the land of Nephi, right? So I found it very interesting watching that documentary, and also being like, well, no wonder. I'm just reading just a couple things here. They were getting scattered, the scattering of Israel, the scattering of all these people was just happening nonstop.
Yeah, there's probably so much more we don't have than what we have.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, probably barely scratching the surface.
They even said if all the words of Jesus Christ could be written, not like there would be no volume, like no room to contain all the
contain it, yeah.
It's like, well, that's just from Jesus, right? Like if you're telling me not everything could contain it.
Third Nephi.
Yeah. So to think me and you or like anyone knows really what's happened in this history of just life, seriously, right? This is mortal life. Like we are so far off, like the veil that Jared saw, like for us to think we know everything is so dumb. Like we do this podcast because it's interesting for us to learn, but I'm just learning like we're not even close to knowing it all. But what do we do know? When you break down someone's life into two sentences, were you righteous or not? Were you righteous or wicked, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It just shows you like knowing facts and what you know is like not that important, right? Because it's pretty unclear, pretty ambiguous, pretty like it's not straightforward. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, that's not what life's about, knowing and learning stuff.
It's not, right? It's about I would say it's about who you become in this life and how you act, right? Like the actions
Loving
you take.
others.
Yeah, which is so interesting when you boil it down, right? They don't break it down for any of those guys that like when it says is rich, righteous or not. They didn't break it down to like the guy had a lot of money, guy was really smart, guy was like the smartest guy in all the land. Like it was mainly like did he do what the Lord asked him or did he not? So and that's very
Yeah.
interesting. Like with genealogy, wouldn't you like if you could do the genealogy of your forefather, like your ancestors, and just be like righteous or wicked? That's probably it'd be cool to just know that,
The
right?
cards in green or red.
Green or red, was he good or not? And if he was good, then we're gonna name one of our sons after him. And if he was bad, probably not.
If he was good, he gets the ordinances first. If he was bad, he's got to wait his turn.
What did you say that Helaman? Did you say he named him after Nephi? His son Helaman named his sons Nephi and Lehi, and it says just because they were good. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Like it's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you think about like most people throughout human history haven't had a chance to like learn the gospel or even know about Jesus or anything, right? So that can't be like the overarching or the main purpose of life, right?
No,
Because
it's
so many
not.
people don't even have the opportunity.
I
It's
think
got to be something.
I think it's the character. I think it's the character you develop in this life, like who you truly become, whether or not you have the ordinances in the gospel. If like you're a good person, if you're a loving person, like that's what really matters. Because I believe like if the gospel is introduced to you in the next life and you were a good person, what do you think you're going to do? You're probably going to accept the gospel, right? You're probably going to accept Christ if that's who you were. But if you're not that person and you willfully rebel and you make the decision like I want to be this bad person, like you're not going to want to be in the presence of God, right? So I think that's what really matters.
Because I think I think the scripture where it talks about like the laws written in our heart, right? And like we all have like the light of Christ, we all have the promptings to like love and serve others, right? And to do good things for others. And so regardless if you're in the gospel or not, or you've ever heard of it or not, like you still get those promptings, right? And those invitations to love others, regardless of being in it, knowing it. Because it's so hard, like, we have friends that don't believe anymore, right? Have gone inactive. And it's like, it's so hard to like understand what is true and what isn't true, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like incomprehensible, or I mean it's very understandable like why people leave the church, right? And it's just like things are not that clear, you know what I mean? Like even though sometimes we talk like, oh, it's so obvious that the church is true, or like that these things all happen, and it's like it's not that obvious.
Well, this is an experience I had. I was getting a pedicure with my wife, and I felt a prompting to to talk to one of the people at the nail salon like about the gospel. But the dude's working, right? So I failed. Okay, I'll somehow give him a Book of Mormon one day. But then I looked around and I said, why just him? Like everybody in here needs the gospel. Everybody here, like they're all Asian, right? So like everybody needs it. And it just makes me think it's like everybody needs this, right, Corey? But like not everyone's gonna have it. And I'll go in, I'll do my best, I'll drop a Book of Mormon off that nail salon one day when I sack up, when I'm ready.
Think the gospel obviously adds to your life, right? Like I'm not saying that because I still believe strongly and go to church, and it's great. But like I'm just saying it's like it's not like it's it's just like I can't with like it's like we see through a glass darkly, right? Or like whatever that scripture is, right? Like things are not that clear, right? Things are it's hard to see the truth, right? And what exactly is true and what's not. And so I think that's not like what this life is about, is finding like the exact truth of those things, right? I think it's more about like interpersonal relationships and the truths in that aspect of life, right? Like loving others more and being,
You
being a
losing your
loving
testimony,
person.
dude? Just kidding.
Not even a little.
Yeah, I've thought this a lot, right? Because we've talked about the amount of people that will ever be members of the church, right? Is like probably less than 0.0001% of anyone that's ever lived on earth, right? So that can't be it. It does help in ordinances and all the things that we have that we perform in the covenants we make are extremely important, right? And they help us.
Yeah, and it's like a blessing, you know what I mean? It's like such an honor and a blessing to be able to like have that in your life and that knowledge in your life. But it's clearly not like a main requirement of this life, because this just doesn't happen for the vast majority of people.
Yeah, and if we just look at the what happened with the Jaredite nation, we go from brother Jared and Jared coming from the Tower of Babel, seeing the finger of God, having all things unveiled to them, and then just a roller coaster ride of like wickedness and righteousness. So it's like, you can have your ancestors can have the greatest experience. You can read about them, but it doesn't stop everyone from making their own decisions and choosing right or wrong in the long run. So I don't know. It's really hard to comprehend. Almost, if I had to break it down, I would say like it's just literally, again, are you a good person or not?
Yeah. Do you love others?
Is it that simple? You think it's that simple?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, it's not easy though. Loving others is hard.
Man,
hard
we are such carnal people. Like, so I was sick yesterday, right? Like stomach and everything. And my brother-in-law Jordan he's throwing up. He's in our basement apartment, just throwing up. And my wife is taking care of the two girls, my daughter and his daughter. And she's asked me to do stuff, and I'm like, man, quit asking me to do stuff. I'm sick. Yeah, and I'm getting mad at. I'm in my heart. I'm like getting upset that like he's not helping because he's throwing up. I'm like, I gotta help. My wife's coming at me. Like that's just like the natural man, the carnal man inside getting upset. And then I sit back and I'm like, what the heck's wrong with me, man? Like this is an opportunity to serve. Like, and I've asked for opportunities to serve. Is this not an opportunity? Like, and I'm complaining about it. So it's just like natural man.
It's hard in those moments.
It's very hard in those moments. And the natural man in us, like we're fighting a natural man who is like carnal and devilish and bad. It's not easy.
It's funny on those moments we like our desire to not serve and love others, like that we then begin to like justify and like shed blame on others, right? Like it's like I don't want to do nothing, but it's why isn't he doing nothing? Why doesn't she just realize I'm sick and take over, right?
Man, it's tough. It is tough. And we talk
tough.
about
we don't even realize we're doing it is the problem.
Unless you can like master self-awareness, which is extremely difficult, right? And I think I've gotten better at that, like self-awareness.
Yeah, me too. Like sometimes I realize I'm blaming my wife for something, and it's like, you're just justifying your own decision to not fully love her and others and to focus on yourself instead of focusing on her.
Yeah, and I think that's like when it comes down to it, when Jesus Christ commanded us not to judge. And that's the main reason, is because like when we look at others and we judge them, we don't know what they're going through, what they've been through, like what's going on in their minds. Like all our friends have left the church, for example. Like we could sit here and be like, man, just judge them, right? But we don't know. We don't know anything, like the lives they've been through, what they've been through, what's happening in their heads. It's you all you can do is love people, and it doesn't seem easy or fair to like the things that people have to deal with in this life. So you can't judge it all.
Yeah, it seems like when you break down like most issues with like most people, it seems like it comes down to like, at least for me, like when I'm more focused on myself, like I'm unhappy, I'm more depressed, I'm all this, like I'm sad more, like I get angry more, like all those things, right? So yeah, I mean, it's really just about like turning outward. And like, I think one of the temptations Satan like throws at us too is like he tries to get us to focus so much on like what we do wrong. And even that I think is a problem. Like you shouldn't be focusing so much on like the sins in your past and like what you've done wrong. And like, that's just the wrong focus to have. You're focused like way too much on yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you got to push that aside and focus on others. Even if you're trying to be like, quit trying to focus on being righteous, just focus on helping other people, right? Focus on others, right? Like, don't worry so much about like who you're becoming, just focus on other people. Because even like focusing on who you're becoming, it's like, that's the wrong focus. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think about this a lot.
Become that person without focusing on other people.
Yeah, it's like what we were talking about when we're trying to read the scriptures or a good book, and our kids are like, "Daddy," and we're like, "Get out of here! I'm trying to become better." You know, in your mind, you're like, "Quit bothering me! I'm trying to master."
Yeah,
like,
what a like oxymoron, right? Like,
right? Yeah. You know what's interesting? The Stick of Joseph. They've had that guy on, and Seawick's had this guy on that talks about the priesthood. How the priesthood isn't something that you just like receive and you get it. It's like you enter into the brother. What's his name?
Todd something.
Yeah, that guy's awesome. But basically, the reason I'm bringing him up is he talks about sacrifice. Like that's the key is sacrifice. Like that's what the Lord did. Like a day or a couple days before the Lord was crucified, what did he do? He washed his disciples' feet. That's the sacrifice. Like, the carnal man would be like, I'm about to die. You guys better all wash my feet and make my life really good before I have to suffer, right? But it's sacrifice. So it makes you think like, how can you stop focusing on yourself and sacrifice for others?
Right before he was about to die. Yeah,
he did the ultimate.
You'd be like, kind of like when you were sick, right? Like, I'm sick. Like, why aren't you doing nothing, right? It's like, I'm about to die. Why am I doing stuff for you?
Exactly. But that's, and I honestly think like, what is the church? What are the ordinances? What are all these things that we do? I think they guide us and help us to sacrifice, to teach us how to be selfless. Like when you go to church, a calling, a lot of people are like, I'm not accepting that calling. That calling sucks. You know how much I'm going to have to work to do that? It's a sacrifice. You're given an opportunity to sacrifice. Do you think?
Even going to church in general, like the purpose is to like not get out a bunch of stuff for yourself, right?
Yeah.
The purpose is to go like give to a community, right? Like, and to offer yourself fully to that community.
Yeah, it's a sacrifice.
Be a blessing and a servant to the people in that community. And trying to like practice living Zion, right?
Right. And what is the temple? The temple, in my opinion, is the ultimate sacrifice. You're sacrificing your time and your whole body for someone who can't do the work themselves. Like you're becoming, they call it a savior on Mount Zion. Like you're sacrificing yourself, right? Your time, your body, like so other people can benefit. So that's why.
Go ahead, finish.
No, go ahead. I was just saying sacrifice that's what we're learning.
Yeah. I mean, that's why the light of Christ is so important, because it breaks us out of like those, when we can't see our own faults, right? And like when you look at, like the light of Christ is like you see a sinless person who like completely like focused on others and not himself in the hardest moments, right? And the light that comes from that like breaks us out of our own habits of like, it doesn't matter that it's unfair. It doesn't matter that I've done all this work or I've done like all these things. Like I don't get to justify my lack of love for others because I feel like I've done a lot or because I feel like I'm this or this circumstance, right? It's the light of Christ like breaks us out of those like those patterns of thinking and like allows us to like see like the truth of the matter. Like I should, even when I am sick, I should like want to serve fully my wife or others or my kids or whoever, right?
Yeah.
And not focus on what's going on with me, right?
And what is marriage really? Marriage is just like a giant sacrifice, right? Like you're trying to fulfill the needs of your spouse at all times, right? Like a lot of people think marriage is like, oh, I'm gonna marry someone and they're just gonna serve me nonstop. But like that, we all know that's not the case, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, bro. Well, you go sacrifice your time for your family right now. They're all getting up now, I bet.
Yeah, starting to wake up.
All right, peace out, bro. It's good episode. We'll do the one this week later.
Sounds good.
All right, bye.